In today's video, I'm going to show you how to use any model with N8N using something called Open Router. Now, I'm also going to be showing you how to create an LLM router so that your agent decides which model to use based on your question. Let's get right into a demo. So the beautiful thing about these two agents right here is they can pretty much be implemented wherever you want. You can just drop these in the middle of any agentic system you have. When you need to get an answer with a dynamic model, you can just drop the decider before it. Now, what we're going to be using today is actually a new update in N8N, and it allows you to use something called Open Router. So when I click in here, as you can see, I have my dynamic output for my model, but what I want to show you is all the models that Open Router has access to. If I go to Fixed and I hit this dropdown, just take a look at all of these models. It uses Anthropic models, Amazon models, DeepSeek models. You can even use DeepSeek in here with all of those different DeepSeek ones. Gemini. We have OpenAI in here. We have Meta's Llama, Microsoft. Literally every AI model that you can think of, we have here. We even have Grok in here, which I'm assuming they're going to add Grok 3 here soon. But let me show you how this works. In my decider agent, I've classified 3 models that Open Router has access to by giving them a model name, strengths, and that's basically it. And then I give some user input-output examples. But basically, I give strengths for each model. So if I ask a web search question, Perplexity is going to get called. If I ask an advanced reasoning question, I'm going to make O3 Mini get called. And if I ask a coding question, Anthropic will get called. So let me just open up the chat real quick and then ask a question. I could say something like, give me restaurant suggestions for my date coming up on St. Patrick's Day in downtown Chicago, and I could send it off. And this decider agent is going to have to decide which model to use, which in this case, it should use Perplexity since I'm asking a live data question and it needs real-time data. As you can see, it gives me a nice answer. That's great. Gives me some different restaurants I can, go take a look at. And if we click into this dynamic model, what you're going to notice is the model it used was Perplexity in this case. So you can dynamically map a model from the previous agent. That's what we're going to be learning how to build today. If I ask a coding question and send it off, as you can see, of course, it's going to give me the code like normal. And if we go check the dynamic model, it's using Claude 3.5 Sonnet because in my instructions, that's how I labeled the strengths of Claude was for coding. So this is the system I'm going to be showing you how to build today. And remember, this can be implemented in any agentic workflow. All you need is these 2 agents in the system that I'm about to show you. So I'm going to show you how to build out this entire LLM router system step by step in today's video. But if you want to be in a position where you don't have to come to YouTube, but you can actually create your own agents, then I recommend joining our AI Foundations community where we teach you the actual skills to building agents. We have a 30-plus module course on building your agents with N8N, and not only that, but we also have multiple templates that you can easily install into your workspace so that you're not only learning how to do this, but you're also getting to where you want to be a lot quicker, getting ideas for your agents, and also some things that you can interchange with your own setup. And people are absolutely loving this N8N agent building course. Anthony here says this community is a goldmine for anyone who finds it. Another member here said, just finished another session of the N8N course. The insights and structure make it easy to apply and practice. And yes, that is what we do. We take agents, something that are very complex, and we make it easy for you to build your own. So if you want to shift your mindset from being a consumer in this AI revolution to being an actual builder, then the AI Foundations community is the best spot to be. We've just crossed over 1,000 members, and we are growing stronger every day. I'll leave a link in the top pinned comment or the description below if you want to join us on your AI journey. All right, let's get building this workflow. So first, what you want to do is you can add your first step, and you can start this automation however you want. You could use Telegram, Slack, WhatsApp, really whatever application you want to start this automation from. For now, and what I recommend is just starting simple, so that you can test it out. I recommend just starting on a chat message. That way, when you're in N8N, you can hit chat and then test it out just as you're using ChatGPT if you have this connected to an AI agent or any large language model, right? And the next thing we need to do is we need to add in an AI agent node. So I'm going to select this plus button, and where it says Advanced AI, I'm going to click that. And then we can just do the regular AI agent node. Here, we can leave this on Tools Agent. This should be fine for now. And everything else can also stay the same. Let's click off. And what you're going to notice is that this is red now. So what that means is we need to add a chat model. This means something's wrong. And in this case, we don't have a chat model. So when we click this plus button on chat model, As you can see down here in the bottom right-hand corner, we have something called Open Router Chat Model. So what this means is when we click this, we're going to have access to literally everything it shows on here and more. So first, let's go sign up for Open Router. Creating an account is very simple. You log in just as you would any other application. And then what you want to do is you want to go to credits. You don't really need to add in much here, but you can add credits using crypto. You can add credits using just a regular credit card. It really doesn't matter. You know, you could even start off small if you want. I just loaded in $30 because I figured I would use it a lot. I actually have been using it a lot in the last 12 days, and I've barely went through any credits. Obviously, it depends on the model you use, but what you want to do once you're signed in and once you add maybe even $5 to $10 worth of credits, what you want to do is you want to go to keys. When you select keys, you're going to be brought to all of your API keys here. So what we can do is we can hit create key, and then we can give it a name, and you can even set a limit so it doesn't go over a certain limit of usage. But for now, I'm just going to put testing LLM router, and then I can hit create, and then you're going to get a secret key that you can use. I'm just going to leave it on this screen right now, because once you X out of this, this is the only time you're going to be able to see your secret key. And also make sure you're not showing this to anybody. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my router agent. I'm going to click Open Router Chat Model. Once we select Chat Model here, I'm going to select Open Router, and then I'm going to create a new credential. And then this is where we paste in our API key. So what I could do is I can go grab and copy this key. Now I can close out of it. And then I can go paste it right in here. Once I hit save, it should say connection tested successfully. Beautiful. And now we have access to all the models on Open Router. You can even view all those models if you go to the Open Router homepage. You can search for a model to see if they have it, or you can just select browse. And when you select browse, you're going to be able to search and filter by all sorts of different things, but it's very cool to use this in order to search for the exact model that you need. So as you can see, they have the new O3 Mini High model. If you go to the API, another thing you can do is you can set very specific parameters for each model, like temperature, top P, top K. You can go really in depth with this, and that's why I love Open Router for how versatile it is. But let's go back and finish connecting our agent. So I can select any model I want here. For now, I'm just going to type in a model. Maybe for my agent, I'll just have O3 Mini running. It's very cheap, very cost effective, very fast, good at reasoning. So let's pick the O3 Mini model. You can do whatever model you want here. This is just for your decider agent. So this does not need to be dynamic, but it's just what's going to be making the decisions for what model to use based on your query. So I can just rename this agent actually to something like the decider. Beautiful. I can rename. And then I could rename this to whatever model I'm using just to stay organized. I'm going to rename this to O3 Mini, and I can hit rename. Next, let's add some memory. We can just add a basic window buffer memory and leave everything the same here. And I'm just going to abbreviate that to WBM. Beautiful. And now we are ready to go when it comes to creating a system prompt for this agent to use in order to decide which model to use. Now, when you're using this setup, I would recommend anywhere from 1 to 10 models to give this agent ability to select from. If you start adding any more than that, it might be difficult for the agent to completely decide which model is best for you. And later in the video, I'm going to show you a setup that works better if you have a lot more models that you want to give this, this decider agent access to in order to pick from. But for now, let's just get into some basic system instructions and how you can actually give this thing access to certain models, their strengths, their weaknesses, and just help it decide on which model to use based on your query. I'm going to hit add option once I'm in the agent and hit system message. And then what you can do is when you go to expression, you can actually open up this system message so it appears much bigger. There we go. Now we have a beautiful canvas to work with. We can delete this first line, and now we can get prompting. So I'm going to be writing out a basic prompt template for you, describing everything as I go so you can understand why and how this thing is working. So first, I give this agent a role. I say, you are a routing agent. I say, your job is to take in user queries and decide which model is best fit for each use case the user may have. And then I say, you will have 3 models you can select from for the user query. And I will change that to from for the user query. Beautiful. We were kind of just stating what job the model has, its role, and now we can get into actually listing the models that it has available. So here, you can change out this number with however many models you want to give it access to. For now, I just want to do 3, so I'm going to list out those models now. For this use case in specific, I'm just going to stick with the 3 that I showed you in the example, so Perplexity, OpenAI O3 Mini High, and then Anthropic Claude 3.5 Sonnet. I found that 3.5 Sonnet is great at coding, O3 Mini High, better at advanced reasoning, and Perplexity is just really good at the live web search. That's their main thing. So whenever I have a question, I want this agent to be able to decide which model is best for me at that given moment. So let's set that groundwork up. I say each model has its strengths and can give better answers for specific user questions and commands. Let's dive into the strengths of each model so you can decide which one is best for the user question. Now, this is truly an agentic system because the model that the AI selects will depend upon our question, and it's going to decide based on our question which model is best fit for the job. So here we want to list out the exact model ID that is listed within Open Router. It's very important that when we're listing out the models and their strengths, when we type in model and we give the model name, we want to list out that exact ID that it mentions within Open Router in order to call that proper model. So let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to close out of here and save. And if I click in one of these models, I can browse as well and, find any model I want, but maybe I want to use Gemini Flash. When I click in here, this is the ID that Open Router is using for this specific model. So what you want to do when you're calling a certain model is you want to copy that ID and paste it in over on the N8N side of things. So if I want to use Perplexity, I can type in Perplexity and find the reasoning model. And then I want to make sure that I copy this exact ID. Now, this model is pretty cool because it uses both live search and it uses DeepSeek R1 on Perplexity. So I could use the reasoning model, or I could just use the basic Perplexity sonar model. And I'll just for now use this. I don't really need any deep online research, but that's another model I could add if I wanted deep research and online functionality. I could do that model. But if I'm asking basic online questions, then I can just do Perplexity sonar. So I'm going to go copy that ID. And then I'm going to go back to the router agent. And when I'm in the router agent, what I can do is I can open this up and then paste in the model I want. So with this exact tag, we're also going to be giving input-output examples. But another cool thing when you're listing out models and their strengths, for example, what you want to do is when you list a model, you want to also list the strengths of that model. Open Router actually has a pretty good list of strengths for you. So when you go to the model that you want, and you hit this drop-down arrow, as you can see, it gives you a nice little description. I recommend updating this description as you need so that it can completely match your use case for how you want to use the model, because if you're just relying on this, it might be a little inaccurate. You have to describe here the strengths of this model, and you have to think about if somebody was giving you a question and you had to look at these strengths yourself, what strengths would you be looking for in order to use that model based on certain questions? Think about if you were this agent deciding what model to use. You want to list the strengths as if you were the one deciding. So here we have Perplexity, and then we gave some strengths. I say built-in web search, features citations and the ability to customize sources, and can search the web for live data. Let's move on to the next model. Maybe I want a very high reasoning model. Well, I could use the new O3 Mini High. As you can see, it says its reasoning effort is set to high instead of the medium or low. It's cost efficient, optimized for STEM reasoning tasks, excelling in science, mathematics, and coding, but I believe Claude 3.5 Sonnet might even be better for coding. And so I could use these things in my strengths as I want, but I'm really just trying to tell this agent what I think its strengths are so that it can use the model based on my questions like I've been saying. So I say that it's a cost-efficient language model optimized for reasoning tasks, excels in science and mathematics, and then I say this model is best when careful, well-thought-out responses are needed regarding problems with multiple variables or connections. I found that this model is great when it comes to connecting multiple different things. And finally, I'm going to add in my Claude 3.5 Sonnet model. So as you can see, I've added the Claude 3.5 Sonnet model, and then I gave some strengths. And to be honest with you, I just got the strengths from right here. I just copied in the strengths right here because this gave a very good example of strengths on Open Router for Claude 3.5 Sonnet. So just like that, we have given context to this agent about the models that I want to use and their strengths. The more models you have, the more context you're giving the agent, so it might start to hallucinate, which I've got a solution for that at the end of this video. But for now, we can just run with 3 to 5 to maybe even 10 models. But we need to give it some examples. So as you can see, I said you are to pass the user query and decide on a model using structured JSON object format like this. So what we're doing is we're giving this model an output structure so that every time it outputs its responses the exact same. So down here at the bottom, what we want to do next is give it the structure that we want the output in. So I'm going to type that out. I say JSON object structure, and then I give 2 objects that I want this model every time to include in its response. User query, so the entire user query here, and so it can pass it to the other agents or the other categories if we need. And then model, selected model here. Now this is probably good enough, right? We can probably end here, but what I always like doing with my agents, especially when a structured output is needed, is adding input-output examples so that it can understand how to use certain models that you have in here, how to pass the user query properly, and so on. So I'm going to add 3 examples, with each example using one of the models. I say, example 1, user query, search the web and find cool dog breeds. And then I give an example of how the agent would need to respond, right? So this is the user query. It's mapping the user query there. And then I'm giving it the model to select. And I'm spelling that out exactly how Open Router has their IDs spelled out. And this JSON structure is very structured. It's not going to depart from your path. It's always going to output these objects here. So you're just giving it examples of how to use the structure. I'm going to add in 2 more examples using the other models. So I say example 2, create me a business plan in order to create the next Google. That's a pretty advanced task, right? And then we have OpenAI O3 Mini High for that one, using the exact same model name and ID that Open Router uses to reference that model. And then give me code to create the game Tetris with Python. If I'm asking coding questions, we want to use Anthropic 3.5 Sonnet. If you're finding that it's not selecting the right model, give more input-output examples, and that should fix your problem. But the instructions are complete. After you have examples, your JSON object structure, model strengths, and the actual model names with the exact ID, and just general instructions like role goals and basic things like that, then you're ready to move on to the next step, which is creating the structured output parser. So if I click off of here, there's a button above the system message that says require specific output format. What you want to do is you want to turn that on. And then you're going to see this button come up, connect an output parser on the canvas to specify that output format you require. Before we do that, I want you to go grab your JSON object structure, the example structure that you created. So for me, it's just user query and model. So from that top bracket, I'm going to copy. By the way, I have instructions and course modules even in the community on how to create JSON objects, and I go super in depth on instructions in there. Even more in depth than what I went in this video, a lot more in depth actually on how to get the perfect structure. But for now, this should do for our use case. I'm going to copy that. I want you to do the same. I want you to copy your JSON object structure and then connect the output parser. So you can just click this orange text right here and then select structured output parser over here in the top right. And now you can paste in that example right here. So I can delete everything and then paste in my example. So now we're giving this model an output structure to use every single time as it outputs its answers. I can rename this. I always like shortening the names on everything to just clean up my workspace. So I'll just name this structured output like that. And now we could even test out the decider agent to see if it's picking the right model and to see how it's passing its answers. Let me give it a coding-like question. I can come in here and paste in a very long prompt here where I'm asking for a curl HTTP request, and let's see which model it gives me here. Now, I don't really have a model in mind. I would be fine with either O3 Mini or Claude. Anything other than Perplexity here I think would be good. So as you can see, it gives us that structured output, and then it gives us one item. When I click, we can see the agent response. So for the model, it's using Claude 3.5 Sonnet. And for the query, it's going to send it over like this. So it's sending over the exact thing that I typed in to the chat, which is just amazing. So we have one more step that we need to complete, and that is actually using the structured output that we got in order to pass that to another agent to solve our query, solve our question, solve our command. So what we want to do is we want to hit this plus button and add an advanced AI agent node. So I'm going to select this AI agent. And then what we want it to do is just pass the query and map the chat model. So for source for prompt, where it says the user message right here, instead of the connected chat node, what we want to do is we want to define that below. And this is going to be dynamic. So we want to make that an expression. When we make that an expression, what we can do from the decider agent is pass over the user query. And so now it's just like we're asking a question to this model, because the previous model is putting the user query in its own field right here. Next, what we want to do is, well, if you want to, you can rename this. I'll just name this agent output, and then I can click off. Next thing, what we want to do is we want to map another open router chat model. So I'm going to select this, select open router chat model, and then we can just use the exact same open router account unless you want to change that for limit use purposes. But I'm going to use the exact same account. And here, what you can do is you can actually have a dynamic model. And this is really the benefit of doing Open Router here. And any other model you can do this, but Open Router has access to all the models. So might as well do expressions on the chat model that has them all. What I can do is I can click expression and then delete this. And what I want to do is map model to model. So I'm going to map the model to the Open Router model expression. And here, this is going to be dynamically changing. Anytime you see this green within N8N, it means that it's a dynamic field. So we're mapping whatever that field is. So this could be anything that the agent decides to use, right? It's going to send over our user query and also our model that it selected for us. Next, I can add another window buffer memory. So I'm going to select that, and I'm going to define it below. And for the key, I'm going to drag in the chat message session ID. Beautiful. And now we're good to go. We can rename these if we want, and then we can test it out. I'm going to rename the Open Router chat model to dynamic model, and that's WBM2. So now whatever question I ask, it's going to respond with a dynamic model within this agent. And like I said, you can put this in any automation you want. I could say, create me a business plan in order to be the next Windows. I could send that off. As you can see, the user query, it's sent to the next one, and it's also using OpenAI's new O3 Mini High model, and then it's creating an output right here. And then it gives me that business plan using the best model that OpenAI currently has available on the market right now. Very quick, very cool that it can do that for you. It gives you tons of information here with that model. And the reason we got that model was from a dynamic output while using Open Router. Now, if you want to start getting into using multiple different models and you want to have just a model selection of 10 or more, what I recommend doing is creating a system like this. So the user always will have a question or command. You know, you are the user. Whatever you give the model, that's going to be your question, command, or in other words, a query. What I recommend doing is actually sending that to a categorizing agent. So instead of deciding what model to use right here, instead you would decide what category does that fall in. You would say, is this a deep reasoning task? Is this a coding task? Is this a web search task? And then you could have models under those categories. So you would send the category, whatever category the prompt is in or the query is in. What you would do is you would send that to a completely different agent. And you could have this be a switch filter. You could have this be different workflows, whatever you want. And each agent here has a list of models for that specific query type and how certain models are better in certain situations. So maybe you have multiple complex coding models that do certain things very well within coding. Well, then you'd have it send your query to this agent, which decides which coding model to use. So you're just going a step deeper and breaking it down into different agents that can perform categories of tasks and point you in the right direction for that specific category, which would then go to your response agent, the one that we created right over here, the agent output, and then that message would go back to you, the user. So if you need to add more models, this is the structure that I would recommend. Break it down into more agents that can describe each model within that category much better than one agent could ever do. That's all I've got for today's video. If you enjoyed, please drop a like and subscribe. I would highly appreciate it. And if you want to learn how to build agents like this and agents that get a lot more complex, then I recommend joining, again, the AI Foundations community where we teach it all. Here we have a group, a community of over 1,000 members, and everyone is so helpful here. This community is unlike really any community that I've ever seen, and I'm not just saying that because I'm, one of the owners of the community, but the reason I say that is because that's the feedback we're getting. I mean, just on the introduction post alone, we have over 8,700 comments of people just introducing themselves, other people responding, welcoming them to the community. This is truly a space to find your people within the AI revolution. So I recommend joining our community to master agents and also just the fundamentals of AI if you haven't even made it that far yet. But as you can see, we have that Build Agents with N8N course, and I really hope to see you inside. But with that being said, that's all I have for this video. Again, if you enjoyed, please drop a like and subscribe. I will have a playlist linked here of all of our N8N tutorials that Carter and I have done. So if you want to check that out to keep going deeper down the rabbit hole, I recommend you do so. All right, I'll see you in the next video.